हाँ अच्छा, इनकी वीडियो आगे, हाँ आगे ठीक है। पास में हाँ।
Very good morning. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, a very good morning once again to one and all. I, Dr. Sanjay Gaur from MNIT Innovation and Incubation Center, welcome all who have logged in today for this online conference on IPR and need for collaborative research to deal with pandemic like COVID, which is organized in association with IP Curate Labs and Aryavrat Foundation. So, before we start today's proceedings, let me brief about our pre-incubation program, which we are starting very soon. It is going to be launched in association with Neos Angels Network LLP, which is a associate for us. And we have to design this program so that we can help people who are thinking in terms of yeah. So as you can see the program involves various activities which are carried out in different stages like feasibility study, entrepreneurial assessment, feedback, counseling, and startup training and registration, market assessment and business planning. All these things are required when the startup is planning to come into the market. Before incubation, they have lots of questions in their mind, and the primary reason to launch this pre-incubation program is to ensure that incubation of startups becomes successful, because we all know that startup failure rate is very high. So to decrease that failure rate, this pre-incubation program is designed. The beneficiaries of this pre-incubation program shall be aspiring entrepreneurs who are planning to convert their idea into profitable ventures, and innovators who are driven to prove themselves in the business world. There are some contents I'm sharing with you. You can see on your screens. There will be a formal induction which involves feasibility study of the proposed business idea, mastering the art of pitching, which is the storytelling art and very important for startups, the startup ecosystem and its elements, market assessment, feasibility assessment, financials, proof of concept, and guidance for developing their business. So, this was the brief about our pre-incubation program. I request all the participants to keep on visit our website so that they can associate themselves or can suggest any startup to join this pre-incubation program with us. Now,
Yes.
as you all know, you have been associated with us for past 2 days for this conference, and in those past 2 days, we have had wonderful interactions with the speakers who have deliberated upon topics like role and importance of IPR for SMEs, startups, academia, and incubators, and protecting technical innovations using patents. There were also IPR workshop conducted by the Vespire team. It happened yesterday, which was very well appreciated by the participants. Now, we move to the third day today, and we have a wonderful lineup of events today. First, we have a workshop on how to ideate and innovate to be conducted by the eminent personality of IP domain, Mr. Varun Chamadia, followed by the case study on survey statistics, IPR seriousness, India versus global, to be conducted by the Vespire team. I now take immense pleasure to invite the first speaker for the day, Mr. Varun Chamadia, who is founder of Proactive Eye, an education and innovation company. Mr. Varun's credentials are too long, but I'll try and brief it for you. Mr. Varun is a certified CORT thinking program by the father of lateral thinking, Dr. Edward De Bono. He is Tony licensed instructor for Mind Map and Innovation. He is certified in neuro-linguistic programming, and he has trained over 9,000 students and has had prominent corporate clients like Ogilvy, Just Dial, Mercedes, World Auto Forum, Triple IT Hyderabad, I am Indore, and the list goes on very long. His lab, that's very interesting. His lab, Uzuba Zebeka, which means I don't know how, but I will help. No, I don't know how, but I will. And this lab helps organizations to innovate and grow. I now hand over the proceedings to Mr. Varun, and it's over to you, Mr. Varun.
A very good morning to all in all. This gives me immense pleasure to be coming here and doing a work on how to ideate. Little introduction. I started this journey long back when I was in my college, and the world of creativity always inspired me. I was oozing out with ideas, but I was seeing that having an idea and actually having a potential idea for a startup is a world of a difference. My inspiration goes with this company called IDEO, which is a design thinking firm. During my college, I wanted to go and work there. Because of the demand and supply ratio, it was difficult to get in any which ways. I thought, why not become my own, IDEO, and why not start my own innovation lab? It's been a long journey. I do a lot of work with students, corporates, and families, and teachers as well. And especially this session is on creative thinking. And I want to walk you through the world of creative thinking, as in how you create an idea from, from actually nothing to a potential startup. So it's going to be a long journey. The only thing that I have as a challenge today is that I have 1 hour, So I'm going to, my idea was to brief you with the entire structure and walk you through. And there may be a chance that we may not be able to take a lot of question and answers. Uh, so I'm going to reserve last 10 minutes for question and answers. And initial first phase is going to be all about understanding the process itself. It's 10:08 right now. I'm assuming that I'll have time till 11:10. So I just want to get a reconfirmation from the organizer. When do I have to end? So I can plan it accordingly. Can I request someone to tell me exactly what the time I have to end?
Yes, sir. You'll have time till 11:10, sir.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So I'm assuming that there are a lot of senior professors here, senior faculties, and a lot of young people, and all kind of audience. And this session is going to be structured in 3 formats, 3 phases, I would say. I'm going to be sharing a screen with all of you and start with this. All right, so I have a request to someone. There is 2 cameras that I'm operating from. I want someone to help me give Varun Chamedia's second mobile access to sharing content. The host has disabled me to share the screen. Dear host, can I request you to allow
another
me to share from the another camera that I am logging in? It's in the name of Varun Chamedia. It's not working still.
क्या करना है स्क्रीन वो करना है क्या व्हाट्सएप शेयर करना है
It's not working.
व्हाट्सएप शेयर करना है वो
Workbook.
ओके तो
All right, give it to me.
रुकिए ना
Sir, you have got screen sharing access now.
All right, thank you.
होने लगा स्क्रीन शेयर होने लगा स्क्रीन शेयर होने लगा आपसे?
नहीं हो रहा।
ओके, रुकिए मैं करता हूँ. स्टार्ट स्क्रीन.
All right. There is some technical hassle. Sorry for the inconvenience, participants. I'm just taking a moment to figure that out.
हेलो संजय सर, सर प्लीज थोड़ा वो देखिए ना उनका.
Hello.
Yeah.
Mr. Varun is coach now. He can share his screen.
Okay.
All right. I'm just requesting that give it. All right.
Varun sir, please share the screen. We are waiting.
Yeah. I'm just. All right. Now I'm hoping everybody is able to see my screen now.
Yes sir.
Yeah, it is
All right.
visible now.
Sure. So we're going to start with the first thing: why, how, and what. Why to innovate? Why to ideate? Obviously, the world moves for a better life, and this is a very interesting document which talks about why we need to ideate, why we need to innovate, and the how of it and the what of it. Why? All of us have our own reasons, but fundamentally, all of us have common goal: make life better. How is something that I'm going to talk about, and what is something all of us, whatever domain that we want to innovate, the opportunities will be open up for all of us. So the how part is important to understand, because if we understand the process, it really expedites our ability to innovate in a much better way. The entire structure of this thing is, a journey like which goes through the three stages. You begin your journey from somewhere, and then there are three phases that you cover. The first phase is understanding user. The second is exploring possibilities, and the third is testing. This is a fundamental, very decluttered, on to the point about the process of creative thinking. Now, when I say understanding user, there's a different skill set, mindset, and tools one needs to understand the user. Similarly, when you are exploring possibilities, there's a different set of skill set, mindset, and tools one needs. And when it comes to testing, there's a different set of skill set, mindset, and tools. What we're going to do today is, in first 40 minutes, we're going to cover, or maybe half an hour, we're going to cover the entire structure of what goes through, understanding user, what are the skill sets required, mindset required, and the tools required. All of us, in my experience, are ideating in some or the other way. But if we understand something from a very deeper perspective, and we know how to do it, it enhances our ability to have much creative and productive ideas. Exploration is the stage where we're going to learn something very interesting, where you really will have access to thinking creatively, while the new set of tools that we will be introducing will be something which will enhance our ability to think out of the box ideas. And then there's a small section on the testing part. So I'm going to quickly walk you through this. Anything that we purchase, either a product or a service, is fundamentally about value. And if you break down the value, it is, for example, if I'm buying a mobile, the basic value that I derive from a mobile could be performance or brand. Similarly, all the products and service that we buy is at the end of the day is the value that we are getting out of it. I'm not going to dive deep into this. Generally, this is a 16 hours of work that we do. But since this workshop is a 1 hour brief, I'm going to be focusing more on the ideation part today. But I'm going to walk through the entire process, what it goes through. I will also share the workbook as a link to all of you who can refer to this later. This is something called the user canvas. Understanding the user is very important because at the end of the day, we are creating value for our target customer or target user. The user canvas has got three brief areas: the white area, the red, and the green zone. The white area talks about understanding their functional job, emotional job, and social job. When I say functional job, we got to focus on understanding exactly what the user is doing, and understanding that will lead us to exact element of the action part. Generally, what happens is we mix a lot of things. We mix their behaviors, their emotional part, their how they want to be perceived to others with the functional job, and it's important to distinguish all the three. So and for example, in the world of academics, a student's functional job would be listening, writing, thinking, reading, and speaking. While his emotional job could be something around, he wants to feel safe, he wants to feel like a winner, etc. And social job could be like how he wants to be perceived by others. So in the world of academics, he could be like, I want to be perceived like an intelligent boy. Now, in each of these, in this, we got to understand the red zone. When I say the red zone, it talks about the fear, frustration, and obstacles. And in the green zone, we talk about what the users want, need, and measure of success are. So, for example, when a student or anybody is reading, what are their pain points? What are their fear? What are their frustration? And what are their obstacles? So when somebody is reading, in fact, all of us, if you look at when we are reading long books or stuff like this, what are basic frustrations or fears or obstacles? So when we interviewed almost 2,000 students from various backgrounds, we realized one of the major problem is when they open a book, the major fear or frustration is they feel like sleeping. It overwhelms them. It says like, oh, I want to do so many of the things. They're not able to concentrate much. So these are some of the problems. Hello? Hello? Sorry, there was a background noise. On the green part, if you look at it, what are their want, need, and measure of success? Maybe the want could be uh, concentrate, make academics more playful, and etc. So basically, the user canvas is about understanding the user from the perspective of their functional job, exactly what they do, and their emotional, how they want to be feeling within themselves, and the social is how they want to be perceived by others. Now, once somebody makes a user canvas, the ideas and the insights about understanding becomes much, much powerful. I remember one of the CEOs of Intel talked about, I see a lot of entrepreneurs left, right, and center talking about their products and the features of their products. But I see a very rare commodity of entrepreneurs who are empathetic, deeply empathetic. We talk about the consumer needs, the customer needs. I feel this tool called User Canvas gives access for all of us to understand the user in a very, very deeper way. Yesterday itself, we were doing a workshop, and a set of a few students who were in their 10th class came over, and they were like, there's something called homework which frustrates us. And then we kind of looked at homework, and then we did the user canvas of it. And while brainstorming on the core problem, there were a lot of interesting ideas that we were able to conceive, which otherwise would not have been possible. So I'm just giving you a brief of the user canvas. Again, I quickly repeat, user canvas has got three phases: the white zone, the red zone, and the green zone. Red zone is all about the fear, frustration, and obstacles. But what is the fear? What is the frustration, and what's the obstacle? How do we arrive at that? We arrive at by asking ourselves, what are the functional jobs, emotional jobs, and social jobs? Similarly, in the green area, we want to talk about what is the user wanting, what are their needs and what are their measure of success. There's a difference between want and need. Just want to point out that when I say need, like food could be my basic need, but ordering a Domino's pizza would be my want. And that's how we distinguish the need versus want over here. So a little brief on this. I would love all of you to do some exercise on this, but as I say that 1 hour is very limited for us to do the exercise part. So I'm committed to go through the entire process, which will help us to get these insights and dive deep more on the ideation part, which is the second phase of the workshop. I'll quickly repeat what I've covered till now. What I'm saying is the entire journey of inventing successfully has got three stages. Number first is understanding user. Second is exploring possibilities. And third is testing. And we are in the first phase right now. When I say the first phase, we're talking about understanding the user from a very, very depth perspective. And it has got three phases: the functional job, emotional job, social job, and the red area and the green area, where we focus on their fear, frustration, and obstacle, want, need, and measure of success. We will connect to this once we move forward as the thing goes. Now, the very important thing that what is important is to how do you understand user, how do you create the user canvas, what are the roles that one can play to get deeper insights from each of them. So I'm going to, these are the some bigger questions and gain questions which can help us understand in a deeper way. As I said, I'm going to be sharing this with all of you, and you can read this later. This is a canvas. Now, I want to talk about 6 roles over here, which can help us understand user in a very, very powerful way. The first one is data detective. The basic objective of being a data detective is to build on the existing work of with the research of somebody who has already done some work around that area. And the outcome is to get some customer data through secondary report. And it builds a great foundation for work to get started. And there are different access to it, which you can read later. The journalist part is about, most of us do it. We go and talk to people, gain understanding, talk to them, and etc., and validate our customer profile, whomever we are actually, inventing for or creating new ideas for. This is something that I want to spend a couple of minutes. Anthropologist. Anthropologist is someone who does not talk much, but observes much. Basically, he gets onto the shoes of observing a day of a life of a possible user. I want to share a beautiful case study over here. Most of the world-class companies like IKEA or Amazon or Apple or etc. I want to cite a case of IDEA over here. One of the IDEA has a program called co-creation program, where they invite the customers and community to help them generate new set of new ideas for the future design of the furnitures. And they play anthropologists as a core role for them to come up with new ideas. IDEO believes that anthropologists are the real heroes of innovation. What is an anthropologist and what they do? Let's talk a little bit about that. So anthropologist is a person who is wanting to understand the customer world in a very, very detailed way. Now, when you go and talk to somebody, tell me about, the kind of food that you eat. As a journalist, he will talk about a lot of things which he may be doing and he may not be doing. But if you go as an anthropologist and just observe a customer or the target audience without talking to him much, just observe, shadowing him, and you will get much more insights which otherwise would not have been possible. And the fundamental goal of this is to map the journeys of a customer throughout the day. And like recently, in my hometown, we are actually establishing a teachers academy. And what we're doing is we are walking through as an anthropologist, going to different journey of a teacher and what they go through, and trying to understand those gaps, those pain areas and then gain areas, and come up with ideas which could help us, innovate on those elements. So this is a world of an anthropologist. Next is impersonator. When I say impersonator, impersonator is a person who becomes that person who is using the product or who's the product. Basically, you become the customer yourself, and while you're becoming the customer, you're using that particular product or service and asking yourself, what are your fear, frustrations, and obstacles, and want, measure of success and needs. Just to share one example, as an impersonator, one of my dream company, IDEO, was given a project by a hospital where they said that the CCTV cameras, the CT scans and the different hospital checks that are happening for kids, it was scary for kids because they would end up crying and all that. So some of these guys actually ended up becoming impersonators, and the MRIs impersonators. So they requested the hospital owners and the staff to walk them through like a kid. And while they were experiencing the entire service, they realized that it is really fearful for a 10-year-old kid to go through that MRI scan or etc. So while they were doing all of this, they got that pain area, and we will talk about the inventing phase, the exploration phase. What they fundamentally did was they actually got inspiration from a company called Disneyland, and they transformed the MRI machine into like a Disney World adventure, which we'll talk about a little later. Co-creator is another role which people play, where they invite all the people together and brainstorm together. Again, the idea is to integrate everybody who's experiencing that pain and together co-create how we can solve this problem. When 5 people experiencing a similar problem come together, talk together, a lot of ideation and collaboration happens, which otherwise as a sole entrepreneur, it becomes very, very difficult. Scientist is the testing guy whose core objective is to get them to participate, the users, into experiments and to test whether those experiments are really achieving the desired outcomes. Now we are actually, so I'm going to quickly repeat what we have done till now. 1 second. Yeah. So what we have done basically right now is, if you look at it, there are 3 phases: the understanding user part, the exploration, and the testing part. So what we have done is very, very briefly and in a very, very fast mode, we have just covered how do you understand the user. Now, where this session is all about is about exploration. So I'm going to dive deep into this part primarily today and give hands-on experience about how do you come up with interesting ideas. And this session is going to be very interesting in terms of, because it's going to give us some new ways of thinking which otherwise was not available. The inspiration is coming from my training with Dr. Edward D. Bono on lateral thinking. And what we're going to do is first understand how we think, and then we will get into learning how the very design of our thinking is not, in a way restricts us to come up with out of the box ideas. And then we will learn certain new tools which will help us to really think out of the box. So I'm going to again share my screen and work it out. So we're going to learn about how the mind thinks. Like for example, if you look at the entire way, generally how we direct our attention. So there's like 5 sense organs that we have: eyes, nose, ears, tongue, nose, and touch part, the skin part. And then there is this context creators and the content. Like for example, if I'm going to ask all of us to think about associations around, so when you think of Apple, what comes to your mind? For example, I'm going to just ask one simple question. So what would all of you say? When you think of Apple, what comes to your mind? So it's a little invitation to all of you to share some of the ideas that what sprouts in your mind when you think of the word Apple. So I'm requesting the audience to share a couple of insights. You can check all right, instead of, okay, fruit, it's eatable, iPhone. Thank you, Rahul sir, for sharing. Who else? Gravity, phone, fruit. All right. Now, good for health. A red shiny thing, Newton. All right. Now it's important. Edible, nutritious, brand, health. Now, all right. Thank you everyone for sharing. Now the one of system for artificial intelligence. Thank you, Lucky sir. Now, yeah. So my question to all of you is, why did you think what you thought? Why did that idea come to our mind? Why something else did not come? And this is an important understanding of the self-organizing system of the brain, based on past experience, common parlance, absolutely. Because we've fed that way. Now, if we come back to this same document, which I was talking about, which is, Yeah. So over here, I was asking you a question. What comes to your mind when you think of the word apple? And the content most of us shared about different things: nutritious, colorful, fruit, apple, the computer company, etc., etc., etc. So all that is the content part is coming from our exposure from the past. That's how we were fed, or etc., etc., etc. So it's like my understanding coming from my past, right? So basically, over here, the context that got created was, what do you think when you think of the word apple? Now, most of us create context through questions. The way we direct our attention, the way we think is question, answer, question, answer, question and answer, right? Now, if you carefully look at the design of the question itself, it proceeds with 5 W's and 1 H. Now, when I say 5 W's and 1 H, let's talk about a little bit of that. Now, if you look at context, most of us create context by asking questions, and then obviously from our past understanding, we speak up the content. Now, when we talk about exploration, something where we want to really explore new ideas, think out of the box, somehow the question and answer, the context through which we create, which is the question part, restricts our thinking to think out of the box. Because the moment you're asking a question, now notice it starts from what, when, where, how, when, why, etc. We call it the 5 W's and what and 1 H. Now, the leading questions. Now, one of the challenges of question is it, in most of the cases, gives answers which are something that I already know. It does not get me into the domain of unknown. It does not make me explore the world of unknown. I'm always diving deep into all that content that is coming is from my past understanding of the stuff. Interestingly, while I have been, reading the works of creative minds from Leonardo da Vinci to, so many of them, one of the very interesting insight that they talk about is, they say idea came first, logic came later. And I'm like, I read this many, many times, and they say idea comes first and logic comes later. And I read it many, many times. I realized that there is some phenomena where we human beings also, like most of us get ideas randomly. It's not structured. It's like, okay, I want a new idea. We are waiting something to happen for the new idea to emerge. When we are operating from this old model of context of question and answer model, all right, Vivek sir, you've been asking some questions. I would request you to hold on to some of the questions. Let me, share this fundamental part of exploration, because once you get this, it will help you really think out of the box, in many ways. So let's come back. So 5 W's and 1 H: what, when, how, where, etc. I'm asking a question, and all the answer that triggers is coming from my past. And when I'm saying exploration, I do not want to just go around the past. I want to go into other areas, unexplored territories. So what do I think? How do I create a context which by design will get me to unknown territories of life, unknown territories of my thinking process? And that is what we're going to learn today. And that is one of my promises for the session today. So one of the tool. So there are two things that we need to understand about our mind. Number one, whenever we think, our mind is always thinking from its understanding from past experiences. So it always triggers all that it has associated around its exposure from its past. Like for example, when I talk about pencil, to a young kid, he will talk about, a color pencil, etc., etc., etc. But if I talk to a designer who is working at Disney, he'll talk about an Apple pencil. Because the young kid who is in his school has no exposure for that Apple pencil, so uske dimag mein wo aayega hi nahi, because he has no past exposure. Now, my idea is over here to all of us to explore uncharted territories of life where we have not directed our attention. I want to share a beautiful example before I share that with you. I don't know how many of you know this, that the typewriter or the keyboard, the QWERTY keyboard that we use, who invented it and how was the inspiration coming from? Where was the inspiration coming from? How did he actually think of that? And again, because of the scarcity of time, I'm not able to create a lot of engagement for most of the audience here. But all right, it actually got the fundamental design got inspired from a piano, and I was like, okay, now most of us must have used iPods, which came to the market, and its fundamental design was inspired from a washing machine. The post-it notes that we use is actually inspired from a concept of bookmark by Arthur Fry, one of the scientists at 3M. Now, while studying all these case studies, I realized there's something that happens at the level of our mind, which gives us those new ideas. So over here, I'm going to be introducing two fundamental principles of our mind. Number one, mind always thinks from its past understanding of things, past associations, past conditioning, whatever you want to call it. So let's call it very, very simply past. Second is, our mind cannot keep two pieces of information unconnected. It always has to create a pattern. I will repeat. Our mind, number one insight is, our mind always thinks from its past understanding. Second, our mind cannot keep two pieces of information unconnected. It has to create something, either connected something to the past, or reject it, or come up with something new. So over here, what Edward de Bono's core work that I felt was the huge value that he gave to the world of intellectuals was leveraging on this insight. And the insight is, since our brain cannot keep two pieces of information unrelated, it has to create some connection. How can I create more stimulus for our mind to keep finding connections? Unfortunately, the context that we have right now is 5 Ws and 1 H. And the very design of 5 Ws and 1 H is, it leads us to talk about the same old stuff, the same old past content. It does not take me to the territories which are unknown, which are out of the box. At a very, very simplistic way, if I want to call that what is out of the box thinking, it would be coming out of my past boxes of exposure to new areas, new terrain, new world. And how do you do that? And I'm going to be introducing the first tool to all of you. It's called PO. P-O. PO. Now, when I say PO, PO basically means it's an invented word by Edward de Bono, who's what he's fundamentally saying is, since our brain cannot keep two pieces of information or ideas unconnected, let's keep POing them. Now, is it mixing? No. Is it manipulating? No. It's PO. And he keeps on saying, is it cross-pollination? No. It's just PO. And he goes on defining PO, which is provocation. So it's like, you remember, to our friends and kids, we keep doing poking, and it's like, what we're going to do is poke or provoke our mind to think of some ideas and stuff like this. So for example, I'm going to just request everyone to participate in this small exercise. So this is a smiley with a spring, Po, a Ludo dice and some buttons. So what comes to your mind? So for most of you, you will think the first thing, like, okay, there is no connection there. You would probably, I'd like to reject it. Am I muted here? Hello?
No, we can hear you well.
You can.
All right. Yeah, so somebody just told me that there was a message, please unmute. Okay, I'm just checking, no problem. So everyone, let's become a little child enough. One of the most important part of exploration is that we eliminate or we drop our judgmental thinking. When we're in the first phase and the third phase, we do a lot of judgmental thinking, a lot of analysis and stuff like this. But when it comes to exploration, we got to let our judgmental mind take rest, and we can decide. For example, when we do brainstorming in our lab, we give like 45 minutes for exploration, and we say all the ideas are welcome. Let's just explore. We're not going to judge anyone, anywhere, and all that. And while people feel free to just ideate, and we keep writing all those ideas. Out of the 100 ideas that we brainstorm, 4 or 5 of them are like, wow, it's something that we could have not even thought of coming up with. One of the important ingredients of creating exploration phase, to be successful at the exploration phase, is to create an environment of being non-judgmental. So don't worry, whatever the ideas are coming, just share. Dice, po, smiley. So somebody said, okay, fun. When Rishi said fun, it's Rishi noticed the content is coming from, okay, so I'll repeat once again to everybody. I'm using the tool called Po. Now, the tool called Po is basically about understanding that our mind cannot keep two pieces of information unrelated. It always has to create a pattern. So what I'm doing is I'm provoking the mind to chart in those uncharted territories where you would otherwise not think. Now, when I'm saying similarly, I've taken two random objects, Ludo dice and its buttons with a smiley. And I'm asking you to do a Po in this. Now, when I say Po, some of you will like, oh, there's no connection. Some of you like, okay, let's think. And some of you will reject it or connect it something with the past. All that we can do is only three things. Number one, either reject it. Number second, either so when you say play and be happy, it's again coming from the past. All right. So imagine, okay, so we'll take more examples. I will not give you the ideas. I want the audience to think through, because I can definitely come up with a lot of ideas. But the idea is to introduce this skill to all of you. The skill is not just content. The skill is this. When we pour two random elements, two random objects, two random process, and come up, the nature of our mind is that it comes up with something interesting, and or it will reject, or so when you all right, or it will reject, or it will come up with interesting idea, or connect with something with the past. Only three things. I'll quickly repeat once again. Either it will reject, no, there's no connection. Second, it will connect something with the past. And third, it might sprout something new altogether. Now, for all of you who are sharing ideas, notice within yourself, if you are sharing something which is with your past, do not share. Only share something which you are feeling like it is coming from something which is your unknown territories of life. So basically something new. So again, I'll repeat, let's take another idea or another concept. For example, two random objects again, toothbrush, po, tape, a tape. So thank you, Lucky sir, for sharing this. But all the content that is again coming is, coming from your past, happiness, ludo, cleaning. All right. All right, everyone, just think of a device or something, sticking the brush on the surface. Okay, so you can stick this with the surface. What else? Toothpaste. Notice all the content that is coming from your past, scrubbing, toothpaste, cleaning, is coming from tool. Now I'm saying, imagine something out of the box. This, pour this. So all that is being shared over here is, so I just came up with the idea right now.
क्या दिया है canvasinstructor.com, ये क्या है?
Hello. Okay, putting dice on the spring. Now, if imagine, this generally, we kind of keep this brushes on our on a box. Imagine there is something over here. We can just put this on a wall and it gets stick. Like a simple, consider this is a wall, and then you just put the brush like this and it gets hold on. Some kind of an equipment over here, which just attaches to the wall. And the idea just came right now. So what I did was, tape has this ability to stick around, and then toothbrush, and then some equipment over here, and then it just sticks to the wall. Just an idea. I don't know if it can work or it cannot work. We will check all that in the testing phase. But right now the idea is, okay, come up with an idea. So I'm going to take one more example, and then I will give you a challenge to, to overcome. So for today, all of you consider this a challenge. Yesterday, I was, talking to my dad and my brother, and they're businessmen and they count a lot of money. And one of my uncle was also there, and he was like, "Aajkal bahut risky ho gaya paisa ginna because of the corona fear. The coronavirus could be in the currency." So this is a challenge to all of us who are participating today. In next 10 minutes, let's think of, this is a gap that I discovered yesterday, which is the user canvas part. Let's discover a idea which can solve this problem. Okay, so this is an exercise. By 11 o'clock, it's 46 at this moment. By in next 14 minutes, we should be able to come up with an interesting idea on that. Now, notice what happens is when we want to come up with an idea, we are hitting a wall. कि क्या करें? Because all that we're thinking is some from the world of 5Ws and 1H, and we want to hit this, we want to break that wall. So Po is one of the tools that helps us. I want to share another tool with you. There are actually a lot of them. They're like, when I got trained with 60 different tools. UV ray box, we can put all the notes inside to sanitize. All right, thank you, sir, for sharing this. And we're going to think more on that. The challenge is, while they're counting, the cash counting machine, as a small businessman, or when I say small businessman, like somebody who's dealing with, couple of lakh rupees of turnover every day, it may not be, and while they're going for collecting cash, it will becomes difficult to carry the waiting machine, the cash machine everywhere. So they still need to count it with the fingers. So I was thinking, can we make a glove? Well, the simple glove that comes with enable. So when the rubber glove that we're counting is not convenient for counting the cash. So can we do something around the fingers to play around with that? That's one of my idea, but all of us can think through. Notice whatever you shared was again coming from your past. It was no invention out there. So again, I would request anybody, to bear with me. I know I'm running fast. It's a 16 hours of work, which I'm actually giving you in 1 hour, just the entire brief of it rather. So there's a lot of rush happening, and I kind of know a different box for incoming and outgoing cash. This is interesting, Shrikant. Very, very powerful point. And like that, we can obviously think of others also. I want to introduce one more tool to all of you. Out of the 60 that I learned, I'm going to share two with you, all of you today, which are the very, very powerful ones. I shared with you the 4, which is again fundamentally about mixing the 2 random objects and coming up with an interesting idea. The concept challenge is another tool which is very, very powerful. Everything at the background has got a concept behind it, like a tape. The fundamental concept is to stick things. Toothbrush, the fundamental concept is to clean the tooth. This is fundamental is to entertain or to, we can have a glove with a lubricant on the fingertip. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Very, very nice tip on finger of a glove with as good as nothing. Okay, very nice. Thank you, Rakesh, for sharing this. Again, one of the things that I'm actually right now dealing with is, should I tell you more the entire process, or should I, focus on solving some of the interesting ideas? So, but I am committed that I want to give you more tools, because this is something that will stay with you forever. Okay, so let's understand concept challenge now. Now, every concept. So, what is a concept? A concept is fundamentally an idea plus or value derived out of something. So a toothbrush is a fundamental concept to clean my teeth. Now we can challenge this concept. Is this the only way? So what we can challenge is 2 things. Number 1, the fundamental design of this itself, or the fundamental value of it itself. When I say value, is this can only be used to clean teeth, or what else it can be used for? So that's the value challenge. And the design challenge. Is this the only way we can clean our toothbrush, or there could be something else? Traditionally, if you look at the fundamental design of all the toothbrush are fundamentally like this. Can we challenge that? Now imagine if I pour that with this. Suddenly I'm directing my thoughts in those terrains which otherwise I would not even think of. Most of the inventor stories that I listen and read the interviews and all that, people come up with ideas like that. And when we have these tools, and since most of us in the world of startup and creating their ventures, these tools can be very powerful to have as a brainstorming sessions among the teams. I still remember when I was getting trained with Edward De Bono, the master trainer Peter De Bono, who taught me. He was coming from China, And while he was doing a session in China, he was like, Varun, I did a session at a gaming company. And the gaming company, historically in last 3 years, produced 5 gaming concepts. And interestingly, the uh, after these tools, the concept challenge and Po and a host of others, they created 52 new concepts in 3 weeks. And that's the power of these tools, which something you could not create in many days or years, I would say. But these tools can help us come up with interesting ideas altogether. Uh, so concept challenge is basically a concept. A concept is 2 things: the design and the value, and you can challenge all of them. How you do it is you ask yourself, what is the fundamental concept of a toothbrush? Toothbrush is or 2 things. Number 1, the value. The value is cleaning the teeth, the first page of the workbook that I talked about. And the second is this design. Is it only applicable for cleaning teeth, or this design can be applied maybe somewhere else? For example, the problem that we are solving right now is counting notes. Can we get inspiration from this design to solve that problem? There may be something that we may come up with, which all right, I will give you my contact information, everyone. uh, some of them are requesting me to share. I don't worry, it all will happen. Just focus on the content first, everyone. Please, requesting everyone to focus on the content. Scanning properly the notes through electromagnetic waves. Thank you, Ashok, for sharing that as well. Coming back to the point, concept challenge. Every concept can be challenged, and that's the way to innovate. For example, when uh, uh, Steve's company, Apple company, was looking for inspiration for designing the iPad, iPod, they were going all around. And Jonathan Eve, who is one of the chief design officer, uh, and his team got inspiration from a washing machine, which was actually out there at town. So what were they doing? If you look at deconstruct the process from which they were brainstorming, it was fundamentally concept challenge. They were challenging the concept. The concept of a washing machine, is this the only thing that design can be used for, or it can be used for something else? And they probably, what they did was they poured that with the new music instrument that they were playing, and some design inspiration sprouted. So I'm saying these are the successful case studies. But before that successful case study, there are a lot of failures also. There are hundreds of them that they tried out and it did not work out. But at this entire journey, what was most important was the process that led us to create all those things. Now, the process of ideation, the process of thinking out of the box is very restrictive to most of us, because we are thinking from 5 Ws and 1 H, and we are not even trained. If you look at the entire education, what all that we have been taught was 5 Ws and 1 H. Our testing is also about 5 Ws and 1 H. If you look at a question paper, what are they doing? They're asking what is already in the textbook. So how do I create my mind which goes in the directions which otherwise have not gone? When we teach all of these creativity tools, you see it, the creativity oozes out from young people, everyone for that matter, and interesting ideas sprouts. And that's why we have created this innovation lab, where we help others to come and come up with interesting ideas and share with each other, and innovate and ideate and do stuff. Again, because of the scarcity of time, I am not really up to sharing the inventions that we have done over here. But trust me, there are some brilliant stuff that these tools allows and gives ability to all of us. I think Neha will come to the sharing part, the question part, in a minute, or maybe few minutes, once I create, complete the entire structure. So this is a brief of this. There are a few more tools which I'm not going to cover today, just because of the scarcity of time. But trust me, Po and concept challenge are 90% of the tools. 10 are just fillers. These are like very powerful, what I just shared with all of you. And I know that I have rushed to it, but with best of my abilities, I have actually been able to share the brief of what the tool is. Now, as we explore the exploration phase, I'm going to quickly come to my screen sharing, where I want to talk about the testing phase now. All right, I'm just checking with everyone. Are you able to see my screen? You've closed that. All right, just checking once again. Are you able to see my screen, everyone? Can anyone just confirm to me, please? All right. So, as I said, we just learned PO, concept challenge, and there are a few more which we can talk later. This is the product canvas, which is all the offerings that we design. Uh, I'm going to talk for 5 minutes about the testing part also. So once we've explored, you want to test it. So fundamentally, anything that we make as a product or service is fundamentally four things. Either it's a physical object, or it's an intangible object or a service. Either it's a digital product or it's a financial product. And each of them has got their respective pain relievers and gain creators. So we're going to map that out exactly like the way we did for our testing canvas, user canvas. And this is how you exactly do the user canvas part. This is the product market fit. I used to hear this term a lot from the industry. What's the product market fit? But I never understood how do you do the product market fit. And basically, this product market fit, thanks to Alexander Osterwelder, one of the brilliant work, one of my favorite authors, who's written this business model canvas and value proposition design. This work is from I've learned from him. And the user canvas and the product canvas is like, how do you fit all of that? And the idea is that as an inventor of a product or service, we may not be able to solve all the users' pain points, but if you can focus on one or two or three at the core and design a product that solves that, I think we are in the business. A very powerful way of how do you test. These are the two cards. Number one, testing cards. They say testing is very important. All the entrepreneurs who talk about idea validation and customer discovery, it's very important to do that very, very well. And these cards really helped us to do the validation very well. So I'm going to share a brief about that as well. So how do you test something? So we believe that, like, for example, I believe that this new toothbrush that I've invented, just all of us invented with a sticky at the back, is something that the user wants. And to verify that, we can do post it on the Facebook or ask 100 set of people who are using toothbrush and ask them, will a new enhanced sticky toothbrush is something that you value? Is it uh, uh, creating eliminating any of your pain or creating any of your gains? And measure. So there's a way to measure it also. And measure, you're going to ask yourself, what do you measure? What are the matrices that you're going to use for measuring that? And we are right if, and then you can also define your measure and define, okay, if this is 60%, people say that this is something that I would value, or maybe 65, or maybe 72, or maybe 85, whatever, we will go forward. And while you test, you come to the learning card. After the testing, you learn something out of the test, right? So you fill this card while you say that, okay, we believed X and we observed X, and from that we learned. So either you will want to pursue that, or you want to reject it, or you want to explore further, or whatever, and therefore we will. What I've realized is, especially in Indian context, my education, I was filled with a lot of a lot of ways to do things, but not specific and directed. And that was something that I missed from my MBA days. It did not give me right access, I would say, but this gives me direct access to how do you test without filling up the clutter, and be very, very specific in my testing part also. Again, this is a very brief of what the testing phase is, and this is my Varun's number and email ID, which I can again share it for all of you. Now comes to the question and answer session, one of my favorite part of the session. All right. So I will quickly repeat everyone what we did today is basically, you know, this. So the first part was understanding user. Second is explore, and third is test. In the world of inventing, all the major companies in the world, primarily these are the fundamental process. And what we learned very powerfully was how do we test user powerfully by creating the user canvas. We learned exploration tools, few of them, the PO and concept challenge. And one of the things to remember in this phase is one of the important thing to understand over here is that we drop our judgmental mind in this phase. And once we explore different possibilities, then we get into the testing part. And what is the test? Whatever you have created, it has to match the user and the product market fit that we talk about. Very, very brief. You know, I know the time is not sufficient to do something like this. It requires more. How do 3D printing influence in this process? We'll talk about that. So guys, I'm open to some of the questions now. It's 11:02 and we've got 8 minutes for the question and answer. So yeah, go ahead and please share. What I'm going to also do is share the workbook that I used, the presentation that I used to all of you as a gift. You can use it and please read it. And if you have any questions, at the back there is my telephone number if you'd like to connect. Whatever ways, I'd be glad to connect with any one of you. So that's how it would be. Open to questions. I would request please share feedback again. All right. Feedback is, I think, oh, okay, probably it's with somebody else. I don't know what feedback are you talking about. So yes. Okay. So I think one of the thing would be interesting would be to quickly summarize the entire thing. So what I'm saying is, for us to invent successfully, we need to understand whom are we inventing for. Then how do we understand them is by creating a user canvas. How do we create the user canvas? And we learned how to create user canvases by focusing on the functional job, emotional job, social job, and the pains and the gains. And we use 6 roles to do that. We become an anthropologist, we could become data detective, we could be journalists, we could be impersonators, we could be co-creators, we could be scientists, or we could be, etc., impersonator, etc. I know the question that you just asked, we'll talk about that. So that's how you understand the user. The second part is exploration, and how do you explore possibilities is by creating PO and concept challenge and coming out with inventive ideas, prototypes. There's a lot of detailing to it also. So you create ideas, you test. How do you test? Which one is the best? Is by doing the testing canvas, the learning card, and the test card. There's a very, very fundamental, a very brief, a very thin layer of the inventing process. Obviously, each of them, I have spent almost 10 to 12 years of my life doing this, and I still feel I'm just scratching the surface. So it's a journey, and all of us, it's important to understand that this journey is something that is ever evolving for all of us. So that's a quick, session on how to ideate, and I hope this was helpful for some of you. Open to question and answer for next few minutes. Anyone? So okay, how to be creative when you're bound to be rules and to perform a task? I understand, this is something which is a challenge. I myself, when I was feeling like I was being bounded around, I started to, start my own. So I get that freedom, and I understand it's difficult. So there are stories though around the world where people have crossed those barriers, started as, especially as a student. Oh, I really sympathize and empathize with students today, because I feel students are the creative blood of the country, because they've got so much of freedom, and there's no concerns for managing their cash flows. They have so much of time that they could utilize for creative creative exploration. And if this is really talk to them how to do it and given an ecosystem or a platform to, do this well. Like I think in this forum where I'm talking, our intention is to create an ecosystem for entrepreneurship to thrive and do well. So I'll take a couple of questions that came. What is the role of value engineering in innovation and creation? Uh, uh, See, like I tell you, I don't have an engineering background, so I don't really understand what you mean by value engineering. Matlab, I am not an engineer. But in innovation and creation, anything, anything that can add value is welcome. So, what problems, what challenges are we solving in different industries? That also has a very important role. Uh, all the participants, good morning. The last question. Spring toy and dice. What new ideas struck you while you talk? Oh, sure. So, imagine, so this is from Neeraj sir. So Neeraj sir, I was just thinking of this boring buttons that we have over here. This boring buttons that we have. The idea that sprung to me was, even a customized family goatee. So imagine a Ludo that we are playing, and like consider both of us are playing, and this goatee is like a small miniature of you and me, and we are like moving around. I think that's the idea that stuck to me at that moment. So I'd like to talk about that. Anybody else? Yeah, so somebody just said that everyone wants to jump to second phase of innovation too quickly rather than spending time. I totally agree. I totally agree with you, Jaspreet sir. This is something that even I have learned hard. The more the time I spend on understanding the problem, the much better it is. And as exuberant the world of exploration is, I think it's very, very important. Rather, 90% time one should really get into understanding the user problem. And I resonate with what you said. And even in a lab, this is something that uh, uh, we spend a lot of time, and that's why I talked about understanding user and how to do that. Yeah, somebody wrote a question about barriers and constraints. They are very bedrock on which innovation can generate. It always has. Avinash is also there. Thank you, Avinash, for being here. It has always been like that. Avinash is from IIT Delhi and a good friend of mine. So he's just shared that insight with all of us. Maybe we can drop the dice using the springs. It will be different and force that will have an effect. Thank you, Lakshmi. See, there's a new idea that came from Lakshmi that there's a like, there's a spring and something, some innovation, discuss startup provisions for faculty members. I just want to share a case study with you. Recently, I was doing a workshop for Dumta College, which is in Bhilai. And I was doing a workshop for 120 faculties over there. You don't have to start up, by the way. You can continue doing your job. There's an entire world of licensing your ideas to a bigger company who can take care of so many other things. I am right now personally, in training with one of the guy called Stephen Key, who is from the US, and he helps individuals to, innovate and to grow. And in fact, I'm going to write his website. You can check that out. And one of our work in India is to, encourage the world of inventing. It's a different business model altogether. What we're saying is there is a company who's doing everything in a X market, and you have a product which can really fit in that X market, which is innovative. Why can't we partner with them and create a licensing deal? There's an entire way to do it. Uh, uh, this is one of the brilliant ways we are pursuing a couple of ideas with them. And trust me. So I want to share one case study with you while we were doing with Rumta College. One of the professor came with a stethoscope, which was, can you share the stethoscope idea? Okay, so we'll have to take a little time on the stethoscope, sharing the design and all that. But I don't know. I'll ask the organizer if I can have access to all of you so I can share some of the things. So he came up with a multiple stethoscope, which is a beautiful licensing product. And now we are working this with an American company to actually license this product. How do you maintain your energy of ideas? How do you maintain your energy of ideas? Or are you saying, how do I maintain my energy, or how do I maintain my inventory of ideas? So I'm going to answer both, assuming that this is both the question. Thankfully, I'm doing what I love to do, so that actually made me to be like trying to maintain energy of ideas. Sure. I think what Shikant said is so true. You got to be like a child. And yeah, so this is something that is coming from the core of who I am. And because of that, I feel the energy just oozes out of me. If that was the question. And about the ideas, as I said, it's just 1 hour. We have an entire structure where we maintain different ideas and constantly work on innovating different ideas. And there's a process that we have, we've been adopting. So I'm going to maybe, quickly walk all of you through our innovation lab, just to share with you, just like whatever I said, understanding user, and then we have a huge 24 feet long boards where we actually take time to understand the user. And then the exploration part, which I just talked in the workshop. And these are exploration boards that we have, where we use those exploration, boards. And this is the testing part where we do the test and all the different projects. And this is the business model, which is a different part of the game. And you see, I showed you about the product canvas and the user canvas that we use for our in the lab. And there's a walkthrough our lab over here. We call this our innovation lab, which is almost 2,000 square feet office space. And inspired from IDEO, we created this. So there's a little walkthrough the lab as well. I'm sorry, the light has gone off for there's no electricity suddenly. There's a life journey which we actually take inspiration for and from to innovate. So like from birth to different school, stages of life. This is what we use as a tool for innovating and to ideate and to come up with interesting ideas. This is fundamentally where we are. Question and answer. Schools do everything to stop our being innovative, creative. Nice session. SBA session, full practical, good one. Industry, thanks for Professor. Thank you, sir. All right. I think it's 3 minutes past since the session has gone by. We could formally, conclude. I'm just telling, the 1 hour was very short period for me to be able to be of full service to all of you. But guys, I think the way everyone responded, I feel grateful for your response. I was a little scary about how you do online, because my experience is to do it a lot of physical space. Doing it online does not really give you that experience of what happens in the real workshop. But yes, I think all of us participated and gave our best, and so did I. Yeah, thank you for your.
Thank you very much, Varun sir, for the wonderful session. Very great understanding on ideation, innovation, and understanding the problem first before setting out to solve it. With this, we complete the first workshop today. Thank you very much, Varun sir, once again. I would now like to invite Mr. Sandesh Agarwal sir to take over the session. Sandesh Agarwal sir has been a manager for Verispire for the past 3 years, and he's got an experience 12 years in the field of IP. We will be discussing on the case study between India and the other foreign countries and where we lie in exactly. Sandesh sir, over to you.
Hello, hi Param, thanks a lot, and thanks Varun for the nice presentations that you kept everyone engaged into it. And just to add into it that before testing what all you have done, what all you have explored, or the problems that you have come up, the kind of solution that you have come up with, before putting it onto test onto any of the web portal, it is recommended to get it first secured by government channels, that is say filing of patents or copyright, if at all you wish to, because absolutely monopolize that, right? So that's where the one thing that I would like to add on to what Varun said.
And that's where we coexist, Sandesh, where you could actually put in that element and take things forward. And I'm actually participating to listen to you as well. Looking forward, buddy.
Okay. And apart from that, there's the major thing that I would be discussing would be something like how and where India stands in terms of when it is being compared with their global peace or with other countries in the world. To so to identify that, there are primarily two organizations that does it. One is World Intellectual Property Organization in the name of WIPO, and another is US Chamber of Commerce, that is a division by them, which is being named as Global Patent Policy Centers, Global Innovation Policy Centers. And this was started in the year around 2012 and compares roughly around 50 unique indicators for almost all type of IP protection that is there from 53 different countries. And based on their findings, as per them, India stands at 40th position in terms of in all those 53 countries when it is being compared to them. And US being at the top, and which is being followed by then UK, then France and Germany. In this particular index, if you compare it with China, China stands at 20th place, that is much ahead of India in terms of its overall IP activity that is there. Findings in terms of India by this particular center was something like India has done strongly many efforts to combat copyright privacy through 2019 itself by issuing too many orders into it, and then setting case laws on many of an online trademark infringements and damages. There are new processes being adopted by Patent Office for enhancing the prosecution in a much earlier duration. And then there are many incentives in terms of IP-based incentives to the R&D companies or R&D functions that is happening to institutes or companies. And many strong awareness programs are going on to teach any students, faculty members, even company members to know what IP has into it and how to stop counterfeiting and maintain the ownership of what you actually own. And what is there something that is lacking being identified by the Global IP Center includes things like there is a scope of improving the pendency rate in terms of getting any patents being approved or nullified or trademarks being approved or nullified. Now, when you compare the total number of filings that is there in the world and the kind of percentage that India has into it or China has into it, if you see it in an overall terms, Asia continues to outpace other regions in filing activity of patents in terms of utility models or trademarks and industrial designs as well. And Asia altogether accounts for roughly 65% of the global filings into different IPR headers. And of these, around 65, around say more than 50% comes from China itself. This is what that brings China much ahead of any other country in the today's year. To get it further understood, it is something like, say, if US has done a filing of around, say, 6 lakh applications, China's filing is more than double what US has filed, and India's filing is somewhere around 50,000 plus. So it's too low in comparison to what China or US has in terms of number of applications being filed. Leave apart what is being granted or what is being approved of and then taken further. And when we compare it in terms of the number of IPs being given grant when being compared to the worldwide, it is being identified that India has roughly been able to grant around 12,000 plus applications, and Asia as a whole see much more grants in terms of when being compared with any of the countries around the world, and accounts for more than around 40% of the total IP that is there into it. When we compare it with the top industries, say places from where origin of invention happens. So what we see is that most of the computer-based applications or computer technology-based applications are coming from either China or from United States. Many of an electrical machineries and apparatus-related IPRs are coming from countries like Japan and Republic of Korea. And Germany is a company wherein most of the patents are coming, most of the IP is coming from the field of transport. And when we compare, say, the top 6 or 7 technologies, the number of applications being filed by different countries, and who holds the first position or second or third positions within those, we still lag too far into it. Now, when we see in terms of, say, within India, how many Indian applications are being filed or Indian origin applications are being filed, or say, what kind of percentage does India has in its own country in terms of number of applications that are filed into it. Or say the number of applications that are filed in India by other entities, other foreign entities. When the research was being conducted into it, it was being identified that roughly around 45% of the total filings that India has are coming from India itself, and rest of those are coming from countries like, say, Japan, China, or United States. However, when we compare it with, say, in China, what happens is, so a similar study when was being done in China, it was being identified that in China, the total number of IP that is coming from within China is more than 90%, and it's just around 7 or 8% that is being, that is the number of filings that is coming in China from other countries, say, and those other countries are none other than, say, United States, Japan, and other European countries. Similar study when being conducted into United States or, say, Japan, it was being identified that in Japan as well, there is the native IP that is coming into Japan is of at least 90%, and and things that are coming from China and United States are just around 9% or so. And in United States, the number of applications coming from US itself are 71%, and that of other countries are around, say, 21% from Japan and around 6% from China. A similar trend was being observed when a trademark study was being conducted, and it was being identified that there are around 50 million trademark registrations that are happening in the worldwide, and of these, it is just say around 20 million numbers are coming all alone from China, and what comes from India is just $1.9 million, just 1.9 million in numbers. So as can be seen, China being the first and number of the highest number of filers, and then which accounts for roughly, say, around more than 40% of the total trademarks that are filed all across the world. When we see some of the top 10 companies who are filing through PCT routes, it was being identified that there's not even a single Indian company in that, and majority of the companies are either Chinese or other companies, or Japanese or Republic of Korea, to name a few. In what a few of the top 10 applicants who filed through PCT route includes companies like, say, Huawei, Mitsubishi, Samsung, Qualcomm, Guangdong, BOE, Alam, and then Ping On and LG. Now, in terms of the technology areas wherein most of the applications are being seen filed through PCT route includes things like in computer technologies, and then there is digital communication. Post that, then comes electrical machineries, and then medical technologies. Of the entire number of filings that PCT has in 2019, it was being observed that China has gained a lot, say roughly around 10.6% in terms of number of applications that are being filed through PCT route. And the US, it is just 2.8%. And in terms of numbers, it is around 58,000 for both US as well as China. So very soon a time will come wherein China will be much ahead in terms of total number of applications as well. Japan has done an incremental of just 6%, and in terms of numbers, it is 52,660. Germany is a country which has shown, which is a negative in terms of number of applications that is filed in year 2019 through PCT route. It is less than 2% and accounts for roughly 19,353 applications. Now, the countries like Republic of Korea and France, UK, Switzerland, and Sweden, they all have got an incremental percentage of somewhere around 1.2, 2.7%. Of all of these, Republic of Korea is the only country which is having the maximum percentage in terms of new applications that are being filed through PCT route in terms of when being compared with the previous year, that is 12.8%. However, the numbers are too less when being compared to China or US, which is say 19,085. Now, companies and universities, when being collaborated together, are coming up with many solutions in terms of bringing out COVID-19 vaccines or for other purposes as well. In India, as of now, what we see is there are roughly around 30 institutes who are working for developing COVID-19 vaccines, out of which there are a few collaborations like Serum Institute is manufacturing partner for University of Oxford. Bharat Biotech International Limited is in association with two of the universities of, say, University of Wisconsin, Madison, and another Thompson Jefferson University. There's another company called Indian Immunological Limited, which is a subsidiary of National Dairy Development Board, is already tied up with Australian Griffith University for manufacturing of their live attenuated vaccine. Another company, Aurobindo Pharma Limited, has tied up with Eurovaccines of US and Biological E, which are working with a team of MIT. So a lot many collaborations within the space of manufacturing or research studies are being seen into it, wherein foreign universities, foreign findings are being collaborated with Indian manufacturers, which is a good thing for all of us. But together with that, what we see is lacking here is something like companies having partnership with Indian institutes for developing such vaccines or so. So that is something that India still needs to focus upon, or Indian institutes still need to find out ways wherein they can enhance their research work in order to bring out such collaborations to work on benefit India and that company and institute as a whole. Apart from that, there are many institutes and universities who are working independently and not being collaborating with any of the companies or so. Includes institutes like, say, National Institute of Immunology, Translational Health Science and Technological Institute in Faridabad, National Center of Cell Sciences in Pune, and Indian Institute of Science Education and Research in Mohali and Thiruvananthapuram. Another sort of partnerships that we see is from, say, Wipro has already partnered with Indian Institute of Science and has come up with a joint venture in the name of Wipro IISc Research and Innovation Network, with a focus on majorly to conduct advanced applied research in the field of autonomous systems, robotics, and 5G space. And to bring in insights from these, and the company wants to use these insights in order to leverage Wipro customers on the industry ecosystem for bringing out solutions within these space, that is, say, autonomous systems, 5G space, and robotics. Uh, Another partnerships that we see along with universities are companies like, say, CA Technologies has teamed up with IIT Hyderabad. IIT Madras has already teamed up with Department of Telecom for providing 5G test beds, sort of consultancy to them. And IISc has partnerships with German tech giant Bosch as well as French automotive equipment supplier for Asia for works on to say things like online air quality monitoring, data analysis and algorithms for driver behaviors, artificial intelligence for industrial design kind of things. When it comes to partnering with any university or any university being partnering with any of a company, what is of importance for both the parties is things like to understand the objectives first and then thereafter uh, build a sophisticated collaborative environment wherein they both get benefit out of it. So things needs to be strategized first, the capabilities needs to be identified first, and then thereafter, if those partnership works, it does make sense to both of them, and it's definitely profitable. Much ahead. Siemens has already tied up with in MIT and Technical University of Berlin. JP Morgan is already in engagement with Syracuse University. IBM is in touch with ETH. There are companies like Boeing, which is in talk with, in collaboration with Caltech, and to identify and examine government economic development agencies to help them in fundings as well. SKF Group is in partnership with University of Cambridge and to do all sort of their ad hoc research, and they act as their research teamwork instead of having an inbuilt research house. They can have collaboration with a college or university so that they do help them in any sort of an R&D that they require. And Imperial Innovations Public Limited Company is in their own college in the name of Imperial College, and they both are modeling themselves in order to identify how they both can benefit from each other. Now, when we compare the overall expenditures that India put in R&D activities when being compared with any of the foreign nations, it is being identified that India has spent roughly around 0.7%, and this percentage is almost same for the past 20 years. And we have been targeting by the Indian Economic Advisory to the government that it should be at least 2% of the GDP by the end of 2022. And when we see what is happening in other countries, that in terms of what is their percentage allocation into R&D expenses in terms of GDP is Japan has the maximum percentage of around 3.2%, US is having 2.8%, and China is around 2.1%. And there are just 26 Indian companies in the total list of 2,500 global R&D spenders, and of which, if we compare it with China, so there are around 301 Chinese companies in that list. India, we have just got 26 into that list. So we still had to go long ahead or too ahead in terms of increasing our IP in terms of having the foreign presence as well as within India to counter China as well as other developed nations for sure. And till now, India has no firms in top 10 R&D sectors. When being compared to China, there are roughly 3 or 4 Chinese companies into the top 10 R&D sectors. And if you want to see the kind of percentage that India has in the total India has in terms of the total number of world researchers that are there into the world. So India's percentage into that is just 2% when being compared with and that of USA and China is around 20%. And the research and development global spending of USA is of around 34%, and China is around 12.9%, and that of India is just 3%. The and the total R&D expenditure that India puts into any place is majorly coming from government, and the share is of around 75 to 80%. And what comes from private sector is just 20 to 22%. And when we see what is coming from universities, it is just 3%. So this has to altogether be reversed, wherein private sector has to spend roughly around 75 to 80%, and that of government should be just 20 to 25% or so. Universities should also increase their percentages in terms of somewhere around 10% or so. Now, a case study wherein it was being identified that there was a university named Carnegie Mellon University, and which was having patents in their name, which relates to somehow increasing accuracy of reading data by any hardware circuits. And it was being identified that Marvel, who was into manufacturing of chips or processing circuits for doing such tasks, was infringing onto two patents being owned by Carnegie Mellon University, being identified. So a case was judgment was being passed by the US government, which amounted to around $750 million to Carnegie Mellon University. So that's the kind of amount a university may gain if at all they kept an active IP of their own. And if they do so, there are too many chances that there are many more collaborations will come in automatically to those universities who are able to develop and enhance their IP by identifying the core areas wherein industry is failing to identify proper solutions for them. Another known cases from Medtronic versus Dr. Barry, wherein Medtronic was taking services of a professor named Dr. Lanke, and there was another doctor who was working individually, Dr. Barry. Dr. Barry was the first person who was able to secure patents for aligning of his spinal vertebral column into correct position. And the kind of solution that he has proposed was being copied and was being proposed by Dr. Lanke as well to Medtronic to provide solutions to their patients. And when it was being identified that Medtronic is developing instruments to resolve patient issues, which are copying what Dr. Barry had already secured through filing of patents, they were asked to pay damages of around $17 million to Dr. Barry. And apart from this, there are things like, if you say the number of inventors, US-based inventors who are filing PCT applications since 2018 are roughly much more in comparison to any other countries. So US being the first in that, and China being the second. But China is having an incremental growth of around 9%, followed by Republic of Korea, which is around 8%. And India is getting ahead, but is still, in terms of filing PCTs, they are too far. The numbers that we have is of 50,000, which has to be increased to around, say, at least 10 times as soon as possible, say within a year or two, so that as it grows, then thereafter we can think of the next stage or so. When we say the number of PCT applications, Huawei Technologies, Jetty, and BOE Technologies are the Chinese companies who are the ahead of any other country. From US, there are just two companies, Intel and Qualcomm. And then thereafter, Republic of Korea, we run two companies from that, Samsung and LG. There comes Japan with a company named Mitsubishi Electric. And from Sweden, it's Ericsson, and from Germany, it's Robert Bosch. So these are the top 10 companies. And in this, the countries that comes as China, US, Republic of Korea, Japan, Sweden, and Germany. Now, when we say the number of applications that China received in terms of utility applications, so say just patent applications that China received in the year 2018 is roughly say 22% more from the previous year in China and accounts for around 2.1 million. And in this, again, the growth in India is around 7%, which is though good, but yes, we had to do too much in terms of reaching to around 22 or so. In terms of trademarks, again, the total applications that are being filed, China still holds more than 51% of the total number of applications being filed. US just 4.5%, Japan 3.6%, Europe 2.7%, and Iran 2.7%. And when we see from the sectors, as in from where all these applications are coming in, so China is a country where a majority of the applications are coming from agriculture field, and the companies and countries like France, Germany, Japan, and US. So most of the applications that they are filing are coming from multiple domains or ad hoc domains, which doesn't segregate into just one domain, but probably from IT services or so. When we say in terms of number of, which are the top companies who are filing these applications, Daimler, Henkel, and Brillix are one of the top 3 companies from Germany who are filing most of the applications. Then comes Novartis, which is a Switzerland company. Then France, L'Oreal company. In Japan, there are 2 companies in the name of Nintendo and Shiseido. From US, it's just Apple. From Hungary, it's Richard Gadon. And from Republic of Korea, it's Samsung Electronics. So what we see is that India has yet to increase their numbers to a level wherein they can fall at least into top 10 first, so that we are being recognized well in terms of a country, and then thereafter individual companies as well as institutes within this country to get proper collaboration within these. Now, when we see the number of designs being filed, then in this also, China accounts for roughly 54% of the applications, Europe around 8%, and US, Germany together around 6%, and Republic of Korea around 5%. And when we see the kind of designs, the area or the industries from where these designs are coming in, so in UK, most of the designs are coming from advertising field, and in furniture and household, Germany is the country which is holding the top position. And India is a country wherein most of the applications are being filed from the field of textiles and its accessories. And other countries within the domain of textile and accessories filing similar amount of filings includes countries like Italy and Republic of Korea. On from design side, 2 companies who are filing the most applications holds the top position are Samsung and LG, who are from Republic of Korea. And then thereafter Germany, and from there it's Volkswagen and Thomas Sabo. That's all sort of details from our end, and in terms of the comparison of India when being compared to its global peers. So if there's any query, you are welcome to do so. Param, thanks for all your time, and this is all that was there from my side in terms of where does IP stand of India's IP stand when being compared to any other foreign nation, and it is being seen by all of you that where we stand and what all do we need to do in terms of getting it ahead and at a pace wherein other foreign nations are. Over to you, Param. And thanks to all of you for your time. And
Thank you, Mr. Agarwal. And it was a pleasure listening to you. And of course, the first session was very good, where we understood the various aspects of IP. And what you have told, Mr. Agarwal, I am very sure that participants must be greatly benefited to take forward their understanding to the next level. With that, we come to the end with today's proceedings. I thank all the speakers, eminent speakers, and the participants who have actively interacted with the speakers, and I'm sure they must be greatly benefited by today's proceedings. Once again, I would like to remind that the pre-incubation program of MIIC is to be launched. In fact, you can visit our website by today evening, and you will be seeing the details of the program there. You can suggest about this program to people known to you. They can visit us, they can interact with us. If they have any questions, they can write to us. So I thank the speakers and the participants for participating in today's proceedings. Thank you so much. And goodbye from my eyes. See you tomorrow.